Hi, this is Greg Cope from naturalhealingsoftware.com, and we're going to be going through together looking at the RadarOpus program and generally talking about some of the advantages and things that you can take into your practice of homeopathy when you're working with an electronic repertory and electronic resources. I guess homeopathy technology and repertory technology in particular is something that's been around since the start of homeopathy. In the very early days, when you're working with 10, 20, 30 medicines, it was possible to practice as a homeopath without having all these additional resources because we could just have our provings with the information about the medicines in them and remember most of the details in our head and work in our clinics fairly well with the small number of medicines that were available. But as more and more medicines started to exist, Hahnemann started to see a need for other ways to approach our information, access the information. Because essentially what we are doing in our practice as homeopaths is being researchers, so having access to information really is what it is that we do. So people started looking at making repertories. Hahnemann made the first one, and then we had work with Jahr and Bonninghausen, which really formed the foundation of the modern development of repertories, Kent's repertory and onwards from there. As we started to have more and more medicines accessible to us and more medicines we knew things about, we needed larger and more detailed, more sophisticated repertory technologies. We've reached a stage with our development of homeopathy information now, where we have several thousand medicines which are out there, that and any one of those we may be using in our everyday in our practices. So we're needing ways to access this enormous wealth of information, but also access it quickly so that we can keep up with the demands of what it is that we do in practice. Of course, it's very few of us who can afford to spend 1 or 2 days working on a single case. We really need to get to solutions for our clients very quickly. So over the last 15, 20 years or so, electronic repertory technology and electronic databases in general have become incredibly popular in homeopathy because we've needed ways to access this information. The RadarOpus program is actually really exciting because it's a brand new program. It's been built by Archibald, who've been making homeopathy software for a couple of decades now. They used to make the Radar and the Encyclopedia Homeopathica and the Winship programs, and programs for repertorizing or for working with Materia Medica or for patient records, etc. RadarOpus is their brand new program that actually surpasses all of these. Brings repertories, Materia Medica and patients, all those functions together in one program using the newest of programming technology and the kind of tools that are only possible with at the level of computer technology development that we've reached recently. So what you're seeing at the moment is the RadarOpus program, and the layout probably looks fairly familiar to you because it works very much the same way as an internet browser does. So if you've used Internet Explorer or Safari or Firefox or any of the internet programs out there, the layout of Opus is really familiar and it'll be quite easy for you to find your way around. And you can see on your screen at the moment on the left hand side I have my table of contents area, and at the moment I can see here a list of repertories. So these are all the repertories which are available in my program. You can see Bonninghausen's repertory, Kent's repertory, Boger Bonninghausen's repertory, Boroki's repertory, the synthesis repertory, etc. A whole range of options there. Also some other repertory type books, things like Concepts, which is working with themes and additional information for repertory work, and also repertories of family information or kingdom remedy relationships, that type of information. Things that we can access as type of repertories, and we'll look at those in a bit more detail shortly. I can also go into my table of contents for Materia Medica just by pushing my Materia Medica button. And so I can see here's all my Materia Medicas that are available, my reference type books. I've got Materia Medicas, I've got provings, journals, seminar notes, conference proceedings, philosophy books, the whole range of, and gamut of homeopathic details and homeopathic books are in here. I have a section with all my patients, so I can save all my patient files here, my case notes, my client contact details, save my analyses and all the work that I do on my cases. I have a section on the remedies, just a nice simple place to access the list of remedies and go into more information about them. And also a section here for dealing with families. There's all my relationships between medicines, family and kingdom groupings. I can see the snake families, etc. A whole range of things in here. So it very much works like the history or the bookmark section inside a web browser. You just click it and go to the section you want and click the book that you want to open. It will open it up. So you can see I have on my screen at the moment my synthesis repertory open up. I've got my program set to open that by default when I first start the program because that's the main place I usually start working when I start working with the program. If you look on the right hand side, you can see the layout here. It's very much like a book version. Again, I have mine set to just show one column at the moment. You can show 2 columns, like 2 pages if you want. But the layout looks very much the same as it does in a book. It's just a bit more attractive with colours and fonts and those sorts of things than what's possible in a book. Of course, one of the advantages with electronic repertory is you can customize all of that, so you can change colors and put pictures in the background and change the fonts and change the layout and all those kind of things if you want to. But essentially, the general appearance is very much like a print version of a repertory. There's nothing that's overly new or overly different there. If I want to have a Mathematica open, I can just go and click it. So if I click on my Mathematica button to bring up my Mathematica table of contents, say I want one of Vermeulen's books, I quite like his Mathematica, I could click on Concordant Mathematica here, and it just opens it up. And you can see here now, exactly the same as the web browser, I have two tabs, one that has my repertory in it, and one that has my Mathematica, and I can move back and forth between them however I want to. It's the big advantage with an electronic repertory is that you can move around very quickly to get to what you're looking for. When you know where a rubric is, it's just a case of clicking. In this case, there's a binoculars button. If I click it, it brings up the list of chapters in my repertory. So basically, brings up an index, gives me a way to very quickly and easily browse through the repertory without having to deal with all the extra information that's in the repertory itself. So I can go to the Mind chapter, for example, by clicking on the Mind icon. And this brings up a listing of all the sections of the Mind chapter. If I'm looking for, say, someone's got a fear of dogs, I could scroll down until I find the word that I'm looking for, or I could just start typing what I'm looking for. If I start typing the word fear, F-E-A-R, you can see it focuses on the sections of the repertory which are to do with fear. I've got a fear and a fearless section. I'm going to pick the fear section, just by clicking on it or pushing enter on your keyboard, either one. And so this takes me into the fear section. You can see it says mind, fear. Here's all my rubrics, and I can look for the things people might be afraid of. So, dogs, for example. I can click it. I can see there's more sub-rubrics here, more steps down if I want. I don't want them for the moment. So I'm just going to click the Go To button or click the Enter on my keyboard, and that takes me back to my repertory. In this case, now I'm looking at the rubric for Mind, Fear of Dogs. You can see Mind, Fear, Dogs of. Here's the rubric here with 38 medicines in it, and I can see all the medicines. So if I want to contribute this towards the case I'm working on, using my mouse, I can just pick the rubric up and drag it and drop it into my clipboard and put that towards the case that I'm working on. So I'll show that again. Let's look for, say, the rubric for fear of cats this time. So I could click on my binoculars, bring up my chapters, go into my Mind chapter, type the word fear, cats, and here it is here, Mind, Fear of Cats. Here's my rubric, 17 medicines. Drag and drop it and pop it in my clipboard. If I'm looking for the rubric fear of animals, we can see here I've got a cross-reference. Okay, well, that's a good, similar, useful rubric. If I click it, here it is, Mind, Fear, Animals of. Here's my rubric, and I drag and drop it in my clipboard. Or maybe I want to go back, look at fear of something else. I could just click the word fear. This opens up my navigation section. I'm back looking at all the fears again. I could add in, say, fear at night time. And drag and drop it, pop it in my clipboard. So you can see moving around is quite a simple process. It's really just a case of clicking on what you want. You can also, of course, move around with keyboard and the whole other range of ways of doing it. A big advantage with electronic repertory is when you don't know where something is, you need to find it, because it becomes really simple for us to search for something. So if we pretend that my client is saying there's lots of things about skeletons in their case history, I want to find information about skeletons, I can go to my search bar in my toolbar, same as a web program, and type in the word skeleton, click enter, and the program goes through, does a search for me, and finds all the information about skeletons. So in this case, the first thing it's brought up is the results in synthesis, because that's my default book, and I can see these are the rubrics in synthesis which are about skeletons. I can also see it's brought up the other information from other repertories. So I can also see Murphy's got some information about skeletons. I can see Ward's got some information about skeletons. I can see Kent's got some information about skeletons, so I can click and move back and forth between these. If I want to, I can actually search all the documents at the same time. So just by clicking, say search all documents, it goes through, does a search for me, so it will also search all the Mathematicas, all the provings, all the journals, all the information that's out there. And I can see also in Blackwood's Manual of Mathematica, this is what they've got to say about skeletons. If I could go to Vermeulen again, I can click on Vermeulen, and click it. Here's the things that Vermeulen mentions that can contain skeletons. So whatever I want, I really just click on it and it brings it up and shows it to me. So if I go back into my repertory, I'll do a search again. So I'm looking for back pain in the morning. If I don't know where that is, I can just start typing in keywords. I can say back pain morning, click enter, and the program goes through, does a search for me, and finds all the information about back pain in the morning. So here we go. This is all the results from synthesis. So I can see here's the general rubric, back pain morning. That's probably the one that I want. So from my search results, I can drag and drop that, pop it in the clipboard. If I want to look at a different book, I could go to Allen's Encyclopedia Pure Mature Medica. You can see there's 324 references to back pain in the morning here. You can click it and bring them all up. Or I go back to synthesis, just click it. If I want to go to my repertory, see where this information's come from, just click it. It's going to take me into my repertory, and here, back pain in the morning, here's my rubric. I've already put that one in my clipboard, so I won't do it again. So you can see it becomes really simple for you to very quickly find the information, and it doesn't matter if you're looking at the repertories or the reference books or anywhere you want to look, you can do a search and bring all that information up at the same time. So once I have my rubrics in my clipboard, of course, what I want to do is see my repertorization, get those results to come up. And again, just a case of I can click on that clipboard, or I could click on the analysis button, and just bring up the results. So there's my repertorization. I can see I've got my rubrics: fear of dogs, fear of cats, fear of animals, fear at night, and back pain in the morning. And then to the right of that, I've got my remedies that have come up, plus all the results. So I can see there's NatMer, China, tuberculinum, pulsatilla, and I can see the scores coming up. So NatMer, it's got a 5 and a 6, so it's in 5 rubrics with a total grading of 6, because 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 1 equals 6. China's in 4 rubrics with a grading of 9. 3 plus 1 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. There's some extra little things you can do here. I've got my program set, for example, to show me pictures of the substances. So if I rest my mouse on NatMer, I can see a picture of the NatMer sodium chloride. I rest my mouse on China, I see a picture of the plant China, just to remind me what some of our substances are made out of. A really useful thing you can do with a computer is that you can actually change the way those mathematical strategies work. So rather than having NatMer having a result with 5 rubrics and a grading of 6, there's different ways I can look at that. One of the limitations with repertories in general is, of course, you're always going to get the best proven medicines come up most highly in your repertorization, particularly when you're picking larger and less characteristic rubrics. The computers can compensate for that quite a bit by drawing the focus back to what's more characteristic, what's more important for us in homeopathy. I can see down the bottom here I've got a range of ways I can do my analysis. So I'm doing the default, sum of symptoms sorted by degree. It's what we learn when we do paper repertorization, where we add up the number of rubrics, we add up the grades. But maybe I want to click on something like prominence and say what medicine is the most prominent there. We can see NatMer and China swap now. China comes up number 1, NatMer becomes medicine number 2. Because China is, even though it's in less rubrics, it's got a higher grading. It's also higher grading in the smaller rubrics in this analysis, so it's more prominent, more characteristic for those symptoms. I could say emphasize the small remedies. Maybe the polycrests that are coming up, I look at them and think, no, they don't really fit. I want to see something smaller. You see carcinosin comes up. Carcinosin, of course, an incredibly important, very frequently used medicine, but not yet well represented in the repertories, so it doesn't come up so often for us via repertories. We can go, okay, I might want to consider carcinosin or tuberculinum or natrum phos, very small medicine, we don't know a whole lot about it. Probably should be equally as important as what NatMer is. So I can use different results here to bring up different strategies to bring up different results and help me find a medicine that's more fitting for the case that I'm working on. Of course, from my repertorization here, the next step is we want to find out more about these medicines, find out more about them, decide do they really fit. I want to see does carcinosin actually fit this case. One of the ways I can do that is just by going to carcinosin and I click on it. And this brings up for me the remedy information window for carcinosin, where I can find out more information about carcinosin. So here I've got keynotes coming up. I could scroll through, read my keynotes, refresh my memory about this medicine and see does it fit the case. I could go into the families groupings and I can say, okay, these are the kingdoms carcinosin belongs to. We can see it's an animal, it's a vertebra, it's a mammal. I can go into the miasmatic grouping, see what miasms people have attributed it to. I can go into the remedy relationships and go which medicines follow well after it, which are complementary, which are similar. So I can go through and access all that information. Finish with that, I'll just close the tab down, go back to my analysis. So maybe now I'm interested in stramonium. So again, exactly the same. Just click it and bring up the remedy information window for stramonium. We can see here this is taking me to Passport, which is a range of information that Franz Vermeulen has developed for the plant medicines based on his forthcoming plant book. It's all information about the plant itself, its name, its origin, its chemical constituents, the information about the source material. Again, I've got all my families and groupings here. I've got things like multimedia files. I can see pictures of it. This is what stramonium looks like. It's actually really a quite attractive plant, and a bit of a strange looking seeds on it, but they've got really gorgeous these Solanaceae type flowers on them, you can see. Close that one down. I can go into my keynotes, of course. I've got a range of other information I can access to find out more about this medicine. I can go to Wikipedia and click Wikipedia, and bring up my Wikipedia entry for stramonium and find all the information people have gathered there about the material. I can go to Google. If I click Google, and it opens up inside the web browser built inside the program all the information from Google about stramonium. I can go to Google Images and find more and more pictures of stramonium. And it's a really great site that Frederick Schroens and Jeremy Sher work on in conjunction, identifying modern provings and proving work that's being done and where information in our books have come from. I can go to provings.com, and this brings up the provings.com site for me, does a search, and it tells me, is anyone doing provings on stramonium at the moment? We can see here Dan Keyes is quite a significant homeopath, does a lot of work, is currently doing provings with stramonium. I could click into that and go into more information about it. So there's a whole range of ways I can find out more and more information. Staying within the program though, of course, one of the things we want to do once we've done our repertorisation is go to our Materia Medica, go to our provings and find out information about the substance from there. I can do that just by clicking. So search for this remedy in, I might say all documents. If I click this, the program does a search for me, and here's all the information about stramonium in every document. So here's all the repertories, and it will bring up a list of all the rubrics that stramonium belongs to in those repertories. I go to my concepts and themes and see all the concepts and themes it belongs to, all my family groupings it belongs to, and then of course all the Materia Medicas it belongs to, all the journals, all the provings, all the therapeutic books. I can find every different piece of information about stramonium that's out there. If I want to read a Materia Medica, so maybe Farrington's Clinical Materia Medica interests me, if I just click it, so this will open up, and here's Farrington's Clinical Materia Medica for stramonium. I can go through and read what he's got to say and decide does this actually fit my case or not. So you can see it's quite quick and easy to get access to this information because, much like working on the internet, you just click on the thing that you're interested in, and it brings up more information about it for us. If I go back into the repertory itself, you can see I can access the same information, of course, from a repertory. In my repertory, I can say I'm interested in Nux vomica. I can click it and bring up my remedy information section for Nux vomica. All the same information: my passport, my family groups that it belongs to, multimedia files, keynotes. I can go to the online information. I could do a search and say perhaps this time I just want to see Nux vomica's information in the repertories. So I click on all repertories. It brings up for me straight away, here's all the information about Nux vomica and all the repertories. So I can see all the rubrics from synthesis. There's 17,770 of them in my version of synthesis. I can click on Boga, this general analysis repertory. Here's all Boga's editions for Nux vomica. And again, just clicking and moving back and forth between them. If I go back into the repertory, again, there's more things that I can see here. I can customize this, of course, with fonts and colors and all those kind of things. Maybe I choose I want to turn my remedies off so I can pick my rubrics without being biased by seeing the medicines that are in them. I can turn them back on when I want to. I can switch on the authors, and this tells me the authors, the people who've said this medicine belongs to this rubric. So I can see here, for example, in my back pain in the morning, agaric is there, and I've got two abbreviations, BRO1 and K. In the back of a print version of a repertory, you'll have a little index telling you who these are. In electronic version, I could just click on BRO1. This tells me this comes from Oscar Borokes. It's from the Pocket Manual of Homeopathic Materia Medica, and I can see more information here about Borokes. If I close this one down, go back into the repertory, I can go to K. Who says K? This is Kent, so here's more information about Kent. I could go to Wikipedia and find out more information about Kent here. I've got multimedia files with various pictures of Kent, etc. So again, just clicking on the thing that interests you, you can go to a whole lot of extra information and things that you wouldn't see in a printed version of a repertory. There's a whole range of other information here which we call tags. This is all extra bits of information that are attached to the rubrics. If I bring up the menu to give you an idea of some of the types of information, you can see things like you can add, of course, add bookmarks. You can come back and find things later on. Pictures. You want to see. You've got a rubric about a rash. You want to see what it looks like. You can click the picture file and see the picture of it. Sounds of listen to a cough sound. There's videos. The type of rubric. When you learn the repertories, and there's different structures when you move around the repertory. The sides, the times, the modalities, etc. You can see the nature of those bits and pieces. You'll see rubrics have been graded by different authors who work with different miasmatic systems. You can see this as a soric type symptom or a psychotic type symptom. There's veterinary editions, hyperlinks, extra information, cross-references, the opposite symptom. You can add in your own links, a link to a website or a document on your computer or whatever else you want. All these extra bits of information that you can start putting in your repertory and also customize it for the type of information that you want to see there. I'll close this one down again. Of course, like a web browser, you can go back and forward to the various different places you've gone. So I can see in my menu, I've got my go back, go forward buttons, same as I would in a web program. I can click back and forth and see all the places I've been. I was at back pain in the morning, then I was at fear, I was at animals. I can click back and forth between them, go back to the thing that I was looking at previously. One of the really interesting and phenomenally useful things that's going to be coming out as a result of Opus is that they've built a program which is able to work at the same time in a whole range of different languages. There's 30-something languages which are in there at the moment. It's a big limitation for us in homeopathy because people are doing spectacular work with new information, new research, new medicines, but if it's not in a language that we can access it, it's not going to help us very much. You can see here I've got my repertory in English. I only speak one language, so I always use English. But if you're working in a different language, you could change the language. You show this document in German, for example, or maybe if you speak two languages, you want to choose an additional language. Choose German and see both the German and the English at the same time. So I can see here's my German translation, English. German, English. And going down through the repertory, you can work with both languages. I'll switch that back off again. Really useful thing is if the repertory doesn't exist in a language you want to use. Perhaps you're working with Japanese. No one's written a modern repertory in Japanese. I can go into here and do an automatic translation to turn my repertory document into Japanese. I just click on Japanese and break the program a second or so, but it's going through and actually translating the entire repertory into Japanese. So here you go. You can see the rubric here, Japanese characters. And here's a translation. So suddenly the repertory becomes accessible for someone who speaks a language where the document's not been published or translated into that language. I'm just going to turn that one back off again. Even for us as English speakers, this can be really, really useful. I know very often in my repertorizations, I see medicines come up where I can't find any materia medica or any provings for them in English because all the work's been done in another language. A great example is Tritic vulgare. It's made from wheat. It's probably a really fantastic, useful medicine. We all know how many people are reacting to wheat nowadays. But there's no proving, there's nothing available in English, so I can't read anything for it. If I do a search for Tritic, I'll just type it in my search box up here, Tritic vulgare, and just search. There we go. So I can see here's a materia medica, Frederick P. I can click it. Unfortunately for me, I can't read any of this, so it's not going to be so much use for me in my clinic. Maybe this is really useful medicine. If I go into the document itself, again, I can use my translator to do a translation and put it into English. So click it. Again, it's going to take it a second or so because this is the program going through and doing a electronic translation. But here we go. Now in green, I can see my list here in English and I can go and read that document. So suddenly all this information, repertories, even really important historical stuff, some of the things from our early founders were mainly writing in German, that we have not had good access to that in English in 200 years. Suddenly there's a way that the technology makes it possible for us to access that information when we couldn't access it before. Of course, there's a whole range of shortcuts, ways to access this type of information. My remedies table of contents, if I'm looking for information on a remedy, I don't have to do a repertorization or find a rubric first. I can just say I'm looking for information on sulfur. And look, here are all the medicines that contain sulfur. I can say, okay, what am I looking for? Ferrum sulfuricum. Click it, search for the information in this remedy from all documents. Goes through, here's all the information that exists about ferrum sulfuricum. There's actually quite a bit of information there for a very small, not very well known, almost never used medicine. Suddenly I've got all this information that's available, I can access, read and go through it. A similar thing for families. I can go to my families and say I'm looking for snakes. Again, I can click this. I'm going to search for this family in all documents. If I click it, this will bring up every bit of information that exists on any snake medicine in all the repertories, the materia medicas, etc. Here it is here, and so you can see there's heaps and heaps of this information. We've got a lot of good snake medicines in homeopathy. So I can see all my repertories with snakes information in them. I could scroll down and pick the other things I want. If I'm looking for, say, let's see what Farrington had to say about it, I'll just type Farrington into my search box. Brings up Farrington's materia medicas, comparative materia medicas, therapeutic books. I can just click on them and this brings that information up for me. And here's what he's got to say about lachesis, etc. in his comparative materia medica books. A whole range of other things. I should show you if we go back to the analysis. One of the big things that's changed with recent homeopathy is people are developing lots of systems and ways of working with information which we didn't have previously. One of the really nifty ways you can navigate that is using the maps. So if I click on my map section, this is a whole range of working with different authors' approaches to understanding homeopathy. So I can see I've got Grant Bentley, very well known Australian homeopath, who works with a specific method of using facial diagnosis, mapping the features on your face to diagnose the miasm that you belong to. So I could look through these groupings and say, here's my details about the yellow colour. He calls Sora yellow. He doesn't like to tell a client you're syphilis. So instead of using a word that might shock them, he says that you're blue. So go here, blue, motion is inward. Here's the shapes. I can click on that and see some pictures of what people with a blue face would look like. And if I decide, yes, I want to use a blue medicine for this client, if I click it, it takes me back to my repertorization, and here I can see just the medicines that belong to the blue grouping, or the syphilitic grouping, according to Grant Bentley. I'll turn that one off again. Or I can go into my maps again. There's a whole range of different types of information in here. If I bring some of that up for you, Margaret Cavell's work, there's some provings that she's done here on new tree medicines. Got one here by Joe Evans, working with various medicines from the sea, marine kingdom. So I can click on this, see groups, keynotes, etc. for these various groupings. Another Australian homeopath, Alistair Gray, is proving work that he's been doing in Australia. I can go into plants, for example, and see the keynotes of the plant groups that he's been working with. Patricia Hatherley, also from Australia, does a lot of work with lactation. So she's got some hints here for working with lactation issues, and also links to her book. Sorry, I was a bit too quick. I didn't click. Here we go. Liz Layla's working with homeopathic psychiatry. Her groupings based on Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief or grieving. I've got Farrokh Masters work on the lac kingdom, the milk medicines. Some new work here from Roger Morrison. He's been working with the carbon family, or the medicines in the that contain carbon. Margaret Pluvier's work with the actinides, the element group. I've got Sankaran's work with his plant families, his miasms. Sholton's work with the mineral table. I've got more here. Shaw's work with birds. This is a really useful one here. This is Will Taylor, who's is a botanist, zoologist. This is work with the scientific classification of kingdoms. So I can go into the animals, for example, and see developmentally all the animal groupings. I could go into the arthropods and see all the different arthropod groups that are there. Get the arachnids. If I click on that, here's the different spiders and their groupings in homeopathy, and I can click on what interests me. I'll limit my analysis to just the spider groupings. I've also got Franz Vermeulen's Materia Medicas here, and Anne Vivake, who's a European homeopath who works with Sankaran methods. This is an anglicised version of the Sankaran method. A whole range of new type of information like that, really quite nifty. So you can see a whole range of information that becomes accessible, which before you may have had to work in half a dozen different places. Suddenly you're able to synthesize this brand new information from Anne Vivake, at the same time using your normal repertory, plus your preferred Materia Medica, plus you can access all the provings for medicines that you've never heard of, and even ones that don't exist in your language. All this stuff becomes available very, very quickly. I might show you some of the advanced search features. I'm going to bring it by clicking on the search button in the main toolbar, and bring up my search window here. I'm just going to click the eraser to clear that current search, and I'll bring up the advanced search mode and show you some of the kind of sophisticated searches that you can do using the program. We can combine all sorts of different pieces of information together. So say we're looking at fears, so I could choose the word fear, but I'm looking for a specific fears. I'm looking for the fears of, say, let's say Lachesis' fears. I could choose Lachesis here. If I go ahead and do that search, it'll bring up all the fears of Lachesis from my repertories, my Materia Medicas, my provings, my journals, etc. And I can go through them and read the entire range of fears that Lachesis has got. Or, perhaps I want to get rid of that. Maybe I want to see more than Lachesis. I want to see the entire snake family of medicines. So I could choose the snake family and conduct that search, and bring up all the informations with fears of medicines from the snake family. I can see here's my rubrics from synthesis. Here's my Kent. I can click and go to Materia Medica. Maybe I want Allen's, for example. If I just go over and click on Allen, This will bring up all the fears of the snake medicines that Alan talks about in his Materia Medica. In this case, he's talking about lachesis, but I can see all of them here. I could bring up a whole range of quite specific information as well. Under my cases, chapters, pathologies, say I'm looking for cases of eczema. I could type in the word eczema. If I spell it correctly, here we go. Eczema, that's a case pathology. And the program will go through, do a search for me, and here's all these published cases where eczema was the pathology being treated. I can see this is from James Burnett's Disease of the Skin. I can go to Kent's book on new remedies. Here's a case of Kent's where he's treating eczema. I go to Sankaran's Elements of Homeopathy and bring up a case from here. I can go to the journals. It's the American Homeopath 1995. Here's a published case of someone who's been treating eczema. I can go through to homeopathic links and click on that and bring up all the cases of eczema that have been published in homeopathic links. I just click on what I want and brings it up for me. I might clear that search. I'll do something else for you that's quite nifty. This is something I do a bit when you're trying to look at organ prescribing, or perhaps you're looking for a prophylactic medicine or something like this. Maybe I want to find out which medicines have got a strong affinity for the liver. One of the ways I could do that, of course, is in the repertory. I could go to, I think it's in the abdomen chapter. Abdomen. Here we go. Liver region complaints of. So 235 medicines here. I can see there's quite a few of them in third grade. I've got big bold red letters. I've got nothing in fourth grade in this rubric. So I find out what are the top 5 liver medicines. Perhaps I'm looking for liver therapeutic medicines. So I can go into my search. I'm going to search for the word liver and bring up all the information about liver that's in all the repertories and Materia Medicas, etc. And then if I graph that, let's go through, do the maths for me, do a graph, and give me a really clear visual measurement of how strong different medicines are for liver symptoms. I can see here straight away, so chelidonium has got the most references to liver out of any medicine, followed by phosphorus, and lycopodium, nux vomica, arsenicum, bryonia, carduus, etc. So I can visually graph that information. And in a way, this is kind of like doing a repertorization, but rather than doing it from just one repertory document, you're doing it from all repertories, all Materia Medicas, all provings, all journals, a whole range of information that's out there. If I do a more complicated version for you, I'm going to go back to my search window. I'll leave liver there. I'll add another search. I'm also looking for fear of dogs. So I've got a client who's got liver issues. They've also got fear of dogs. So I could look at all that information. And let's add one more, and let's say they've also got back pain in the morning. I'm sorry, I misspelt that. I can do that search as well. So I've gone through, done a search and brought up all the information for back pain in the morning, fear of dogs, and also liver type medicines. And then I can go ahead and graph that by clicking my graph button. And this brings up all that information for me. So I can see here's those liver medicines, and then we add in the fear of dog medicines, and then we're doing the back pain in the morning medicines. And within a few seconds I get this visual graph of those different symptoms and how strong they come up, and also comparatively you can see how big they are in different medicines. So I can see lycopodium has got all 3. It's got blue, orange and green. It's got lots of liver, a bit of fear of dog, and quite a good bit of back pain in the morning. Compared to, so if we look over here at China, China's got a lot more information about fear of dogs. You can see there's more yellow there. It's got less information about back pain in the morning, and it's got less information about liver, but I can get a kind of comparative measurement about the difference between these and how strong and how different they are. I look for this list, I can go, okay, out of these, China looks very interesting, I want to find out more about it. I'll just click it, and this will take me back into my search window and brings up all that information with fear of dogs, back pain in the morning, the liver stuff, but that's specific to the medicine China. So here I've got my Materia Medica, everything to do with China having those particular symptoms, and I can go through my repertories, my Materia Medicas, etc., and read about how it is that China specifically has that type of symptom compared to other medicines. Let's clear all these searches and get rid of that one too, in fact. We'll do something else that's interesting if we're trying to compare medicines. This is again something we can do with our electronic repertory, is we want to find out, and perhaps we're trying to decide between China and lycopodium. We can't decide between them. So I can go here and do a search under remedies for China and also lycopodium. and I can say, show me the common and the exclusive remedy symptoms. I go through to a search, and this says this is everything that China and Lycopodium have got in common, plus what's unique, what makes China different than Lycopodium, and what makes Lycopodium different than China. So I can see here, it's Lycopodium without China. This is what's unique to Lycopodium. This is China without Lycopodium. It's what's unique to China. And this is what they've got in common. This is what's the same between both of them. So again, a really interesting way of accessing that information and mapping it side by side, comparing and contrasting things together. Yeah, and perhaps if you're dealing with a case, a skin complaint, you only want to compare their skin symptoms. I could add in the skin chapter and conduct that search. And it will go through, do the same thing, compare China to Lycopodium, say what's the same, what's different about them, but specifically in the skin area. So I can bring that information up, and here you can see, in regards to skin symptoms, here's Lycopodium without China. This is what's unique to Lycopodium. Here's China without Lycopodium. It's unique to China. And this is what they've got that's in common. This is what's the same, or where China and Lycopodium share their skin symptoms. So yeah, really exciting stuff that's possible, and really useful stuff in your clinic, things that can make it very simple for you to get to information very quickly and get results for your clients. And lots of things coming up on the near horizon as well. There's a whole range of new modules coming out that's working with particular authors' approaches. You could have a module that talks you through analysing a case the way that George Viltukas would do it, or the way that Paul Herskew would do it, or the way that Luke DeShepper would do it. I know there's a web version of the program being released shortly where you can come onto a website and access the program via the internet, web demos, freeware programs, a whole range of things which are coming out through the release of the program as more and more of the features get released. Is a very exciting, very interesting time for us. But hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the things that are possible in your practice of homeopathy, working with an electronic resource and working with an electronic repertory. Hopefully it will be useful for you to look at. Thanks very much for your time today. If you've got any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'm really happy to help you out and answer questions any way you can. You can get in touch with me via my website, naturalhealingsoftware.com, or pop me an email, info@naturalhealingsoftware.com. Thanks so much. Take care.